AFCON is currently going on, and if you're watching this from the future, tell me, how is it seeing South Africa lift the African Cup of Nations? I'd like to know, tell me in the comments down below.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
But anyways, there's been many iconic figures to step foot in the African game. Samuel Eto'o with Cameroon, JJ Okocha with Nigeria, Sadio Mane with Senegal, Riyad Mahrez with Algeria, Yaya Toure with Ivory Coast, George Weah, still currently the only African Ballon d'Or winner, Benny McCarthy with South Africa, Michael Essien with Ghana, and arguably the most iconic of them all, Roger Milla with Cameroon. Another iconic player that I did not name was Didier Drogba, who is arguably one of the best African players of all time, but I also believe that he might be the unluckiest player to ever grace the African Cup of Nations. Didier Drogba has a massive club career to look back on, which also makes him one of the greatest strikers from the past decade. He has scored 302 goals in his club career and has played for clubs like Galatasaray, Marseille, and famously known to play for Chelsea. Drogba is known to be a final specialist, scoring 10 goals in 10 final appearances, but it's never quite happened for Ivory Coast, not winning one single AFCON trophy in 5 different attempts, which is really crazy seeing that he wasn't really bad for Ivory Coast, arguably still one of the greatest players to ever play for Ivory Coast, having 92 caps and scoring 64 goals for the country. It also makes him the all-time top goal scorer for Ivory Coast. So it's kind of clear that Didier Drogba was not a flop in any way, but why did he not win any trophies with Ivory Coast? And of course, that's why we're here to discuss his AFCON campaigns and see why he might be one of the unluckiest players to ever play the African Cup of Nations. So if you're new around here, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's get on with the video right now.
AFCON was hosted in Egypt, and it was time for Drogba's first ever international tournament. It could have been AFCON 2004, but Ivory Coast did not qualify after finishing second in the qualifying group behind... interesting. But since then, Drogba managed to help Ivory Coast qualify for both the AFCON and the World Cup in 2006 with 9 goals, showing the hunger needed for the tournament. AFCON 2006 had some serious groups, with Ivory Coast drawing hosts Egypt, Morocco and Libya in the Group A, which wasn't even the group of death, with Group D having Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana and Zimbabwe. Shout out to my Zim watchers of the channel though.
So what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Which one? What you gonna do?
I don't know, nigga. I don't know.
Drogba had decent help at the AFCON, with the Toure brothers, Emmanuel Ibowe and Bonaventure Kalu. Did I pronounce it right? I'm not sure. In their first group game, Ivory Coast had Morocco, who were also the favourites for the tournament. The game was evenly matched, with Drogba scoring the only goal of the game to gain the 3 points in Cairo. 3 days later, Drogba scored again as Ivory Coast narrowly beat Libya, with Yaya Toure scoring the second in a 2-1 win, which automatically qualified them for the quarterfinals. Drogba would eventually lose and not score in their final group game against the host Egypt in front of 74,000 people. They eventually finished second in the group. With 2 goals in 3 games, Drogba was set for another major challenge in the quarterfinals against the decent Cameroon side, who at the time won all their group games, conceding only 1 goal in the process, with Samuel Eto'o leading the line with 5 goals. They played in front of 4,000 people, with the full 90 being goalless. Kone scored for Ivory Coast to take the lead, but Cameroon equalized 3 minutes later with the game going to penalties. It went to the wire with every player, including the goalkeeper, scoring all their penalties. But it became poetic when the competition's top goal scorer Samuel Eto'o sent his penalty to Planet Namek, and Drogba finished it off with a well-placed penalty, taking them to the semi-finals. Drogba had one more team to take care of, and it was Nigeria. Nigeria beat Tunisia on penalties in the quarterfinals and were ready, but Drogba came clutch again, scoring minutes after halftime to secure the win in the semi-final. And in the final, it was a repeat between the hosts and Ivory Coast. 74,000 people attended the final again, and it was an intense final with a lot of chances, but 120 minutes were not enough to separate the two. It went down to penalties. Hassan scored Egypt's first pen, and next was Didier Drogba, who missed. Heartbreak for Ivory Coast as Egypt went on to win on home soil. Maybe next time, Drogba. The tournament was now hosted in Ghana, with Drogba looking to rectify his mistakes last tournament. After a decent fight in the World Cup 2006, getting 1 goal against Argentina, he set his sights on his maiden AFCON triumph. Finishing first in the qualifying group, they got drawn against Nigeria, Mali and Benin, a rather easy group for Ivory Coast. Their first game was a repeat of last tournament's semi-final with Nigeria. It proved to be another tough match, with Kalu being the goal scorer, picking up the 3 points. From there, it was a breeze for Ivory Coast as Drogba would score in the next 2 games against Benin and Mali, winning 4-1 and 3-0 respectively. Ivory Coast's next opponent was Guinea in the quarterfinals, who finished second above a disappointing Morocco side in Group A. Well, yeah, Ivory Coast thought that was cute and beat them 5-0 in front of 14,000 fans in attendance, with Drogba getting his third of the tournament. But yeah, it was looking good for Drogba. All was going well and they were favourites for the tournament, until they met a familiar foe in the semi-finals, champions Egypt. Basically, Egypt did not want Drogba to finish the story as they slapped Drogba up 4-1 in the semi-final. Drogba turned into Casper the Ghost in this one as he was nowhere to be seen. It wouldn't get easier for Ivory Coast as they went on to lose their third place match 4-2 against Ghana, as again Drogba turned into Danny Phantom in this one also. But hey, it didn't happen in this tournament for the first time, nor the second time. It's the third time the charm. A new decade meant a new chance for Didier Drogba to attain national glory with an AFCON triumph. Ivory Coast were joining Group B with rivals Ghana, Burkina Faso and Togo, but Togo had to withdraw from the tournament due to attacks with their team bus, so it became a 3-team tournament. It wasn't an eventful tournament for Drogba as he failed to score in the 0-0 snooze fest against Burkina Faso, but he managed to score against Ghana in a big 3-1 victory in front of 23,000 people, with Gervinho also managing to score. The quarterfinals saw 3 games go to the extra time as Ivory Coast and Algeria were one of them. In front of 10,000 people, it was end-to-end stuff, with Kalou scoring early, but Algeria equalizing. Keita thinking that he won it in the 89th minute, but again Algeria equalized in the 92nd minute as it went into extra time. As the extra time started, Algeria managed to make it 3-2, but Drogba came up clutch and scored an equalized. No. You thought he didn't score. Algeria knock out Ivory Coast in the quarterfinals, and Egypt go on to win their third AFCON in a row as Drogba, who had his worst tournament yet. But then again, there's always next time. A big chance for Drogba this year. Late into his career, he was running out of time. But this was his chance because reigning champions Egypt didn't qualify, as well as Cameroon, Algeria, Nigeria and South Africa. Countries that gave Drogba a lot of problems over the years. Well, maybe not South Africa. But anyways, it finally looked like Drogba's chance to shine as they finished first in their qualifying group and were drawn against Sudan, ranked 120th in the world at the time, Angola and Burkina Faso. Drogba made sure to start the tournament right, with a goal in the first half against Sudan to secure a 1-0 win. 4 days later, although not scoring, a Kalou goal and an own goal secured them a 2-0 win against Burkina Faso. They finished off the group with a 2-0 win over Angola with Ibowi and Wilfred Bony scoring the goals. Although not scoring for the past 2 games, Drogba still had a massive chance at winning the AFCON, drawing the co-hosts Equatorial Guinea. Drogba came alive in this game. He did not care about the hosts at all as he scored a brace against them at home, with Yaya Toure also scoring in a 3-0 victory as Drogba and co moved on to the semi-final. And by the way, still not conceding a single goal at the time. Ivory Coast had Mali next, who also eliminated the co-hosts Gabon. 32,000 people lined up to watch this encounter as Gervinho scoring the only goal of the game to send Ivory Coast to the final. It was in the stars. Drogba can finally do it and lift the African Cup of Nations. All the big countries are out and who's left? It's Zambia. That should be easy, right? Right? Drogba, man. I'm so sorry, bro. I'm so sorry. 120 minutes couldn't separate them as they went to penalties. After scoring 7 penalties each, Kabala missed a penalty for Zambia and there was hope for Ivory Coast, only for Kolo Toure to miss his penalty and make it even again. Santos scored their 9th penalty for Zambia as Gervinho missed his penalty to give Zambia one of the most shocking wins in football history. The world was stunned, Africa was stunned, Drogba was stunned. Maybe it was never meant to be. Despite making the team of the tournament and sharing top goal scorers with others, it still didn't work. And maybe it was time to give up. Or maybe. 3 years off hosting the World Cup, it was the AFCON next in South Africa. Time was ticking and a 34-year-old Drogba could agree. His 5th AFCON tournament. The Galatasaray man knew it was his last chance at glory, and why not do it now? Ivory Coast were joining Group D with Togo, Tunisia and Algeria. A very tough group, and I think maybe their toughest group since AFCON 2006. But Ivory Coast managed to overcome Togo with a 2-1 win in Rustenburg with Toure and Gervinho scoring the goals. 4 days later, they won again, this time 3-0 winners against Tunisia in front of 20,000 people, with Toure and Gervinho amongst the goals. Drogba hadn't scored in the tournament yet, but it didn't take long until he did, as he scored against Algeria to kick off a comeback for a 2-2 draw. They managed to finish on top of the group while eliminating Algeria and Tunisia in the process. Drogba met Nigeria in the quarterfinals. There have been multiple battles between the two and Drogba had no time to waste. 25,000 people attended in the Royal Bafokeng Stadium, with Nigeria going on to win 2-1. Drogba missing again. It was officially over for Drogba. 1 goal and a disappointing showing from Ivory Coast. Maybe it wasn't meant to be, as that was proven to be Drogba's final AFCON match ever. Ivory Coast had not managed to win AFCON since. Wait. They won it right after Drogba left. But yes, we've made it to the end of the video. I enjoyed making this one. And yes, Drogba, in my opinion, is one of the unluckiest players to play in the AFCON ever. Who do you guys think is the most unlucky player to play in the AFCON? Tell me down in the comments down below. And for now, it's been me, Tintin Alpha, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.